Okay. Hi, good afternoon, ma'am. So, can I just,
Good afternoon, Roshni.
yeah, can I just quickly know what are your views regarding L&D in general views?
So my general views are that I think L&D is essential to an organization. I'll speak from it from an organizational point of view and then from a personal point of view. So from an organizational point of view, I think L&D is something that if involved from the start of an employee life cycle, and in fact to the very end, it is something that an organization can see reaping huge benefits when it comes to people engagement and people issues. From a personal point of view, what L&D is, it is my passion and my drive. I have been in L&D for 20 years. So, and it is something I think I got into because I always wanted to see people grow and do well. Apart from the fact that there is a selfish reason is that I cannot stop learning something new. So, and I learn that from the people that I meet and I interact with.
Okay, great. So, moving towards our first question, what do you feel, should learning and development be conducted by in-house HR professionals or it should be outsourced?
So Roshni, what I'll do is I will share my screen with you
Sure.
and that will help to, sort of understand my views on this conversation. Yeah.
Sure.
So looking at whether we want to have an internal team of or you have an external team of experts. First of all, let's look at the comparison between the two. Okay. For an internal team, some of the benefits, and we look at the pros and cons of both. The internal team is easier to set up because they're already inside. They're familiar with the organization, so they are familiar with the culture. They're familiar with the employees. Because of that, they will have homegrown examples, right? They will have examples from the organization that they belong to. Which is something that the employees can relate. So there is a comfort with the employees. The employees are also familiar with them. So to share their learning challenges with this team becomes so much more easier because there's already a preconceived notion that, okay, you are from this company, you and I both share the same company tag. So obviously you understand, what is the background of this place. But the downside to that is that sometimes the internal HR or internal training teams can be limited to their exposure. That means that is they have the exposure only to that organization, or it may be only to that industry. And they may lack that external perspective that may be needed, especially with senior level programs. If I go to the external experts, these guys are usually industry experts or influencers. They have a ton of experience, either in their working life and they're now consultants, or something like they're doing guest lectures or something like that. So they already tend to have a bucket load of knowledge when it comes to being subject matter experts. They are familiar with more than one industry. So because of their work life and their early start in life, they tend to have for example, if you see your training team could just be from the IT industry, but your external experts could be from manufacturing, from IT, from ITES, from aviation and the like. So they are familiar with more than one industry. They tend to have an external view of the organization. And what that means is they will have a view, they will do their research before they come into the organization and take a program. So that means they will have a view that the society at large tends to have of the organization, what the market trends are, what are people saying, what are their customers saying about them, and that is published. So they will have that kind of information, and also sometimes what is not published from from other sources, which sometimes an employee or an internal team may not have that kind of advantage and may not always be privy to that kind of information. And with external experts, what you can do is you can run your senior level programs, which of course is very valuable to do because of the external exposure that they bring, or you can run your lower level programs, which helps for the internal team to focus on their internal projects and their core deliverables, what they want to focus on. And that is something that I have been party to when I was, part of an L&D team in one of my ex-organizations, is that this is what we did. You have a bulk of people who who join every time. And you would want to use training partners who could help with certain basic skill programs and things like that, so that you could focus on, or the team could focus on, something that is much more expansive and core, right? But the downside to that is they can be expensive, right? They can tend to, depending on training budget and what the organization is doing and how they want to move ahead, they can be an additional thing to a cost factor, right? So if you ask me what happens and which is the best, or what is the, the best option here, actually it is whatever brings maximum effectiveness to a learning challenge. Is it better, for example, to have an external partner do your lower level programs? Or is it better to have them do higher level programs for you? Certain places where I think that you should be able to do is, say, for your senior level programs, for example, you should have an external partner coming and helping you here, because you would definitely benefit from the external exposure that they bring. And this could be either experts from a college like an IIM or an ISB, or industry experts. But for an orientation program, I would not recommend an external expert. It's better that an internal team does that, because this is the first interaction that an employee of any level gets with the organization. So, and this is the first impression of the organization, apart from just an interviewer or a recruiter. So you would want to have someone who is there and displaying and showing that pride and knowledge of the organization, as well as the culture of the organization. So what you need to do, and my final answer is, it's good to have a balance of both, depending on what your learning strategy is.
Okay, great answer. So just quickly extracting this line, maximum effectiveness to learning challenge, my next question would be, how do we evaluate exactly how the L&D effectiveness would be?
Okay, all right. So this is a very challenging question asked to a learning and development expert. Okay, so because usually effectiveness is something that a lot of companies tend to strive from, or you'll hear the conversations where they say that, oh, you can't really hear, or you can't really get learning effectiveness, right? But it all depends on what your objective is when the time is, when it's your design, stage. So for that, we'll look at Kirkpatrick and Phillips adapted model. All right, now I'll take you level by level so that we understand what are the levels that we talk about when we say training effectiveness. And the first one, I'm sure you would have heard of, is reaction. This is your simple effectiveness, or sorry, your training effectiveness when you say feedback forms, right? Asking a participant what they liked in the training, what they didn't like in the training, what they would like changed in the training. Do they like the atmosphere in the training? Do you think the trainer could answer your questions? Did you find it relevant and useful? Is something that is normally supposed to be done, including an orientation program. Second is, what is the learning or the knowledge level that the participant has gained as a result of this, this learning experience? Has the change? Do they now know more about the company, for example? Do they now tend to think better? Do they now know a particular concept better? And how do you do this? You test, right? A simple pop quiz would do it. A simple assessment would do it. Or whatever, a simple assignment would do it as well. This is just to measure it, and it's usually on a scale or a percentage. Going further, deeper, right, is behavior. This measures now if there has been changes in the behavior of the participant who has attended the training or a string of trainings, right? And you can get this through observations. Either the HR team does it internally, or you've used an external partner, an external person does these observations. Just watching how a person, for example, conducts a meeting, how the person coaches a particular subordinate, how the person interacts with a client, how the person writes to a client, how a person presents in a particular meeting. Coaching you can do also if the person needs help, and that is what I mean by putting that there. Or demonstrations by participants, right? Like, say, for example, you've given them a project and you want them to see, okay, now you've had 30 days to implement this project. What has been your learning? And if we can be convinced that there has been some behavioral change due to application of that, or simple interviews, either to the manager or to the participant. The fourth level is the results, most commonly referred to as a return on expectations. So before you design your training program, there are certain expectations that are there from either the organization as a whole, or there are some expectations that have come in due to needs that have been sussed out from an appraisal process, or there have been, it's a special program that, a particular lead has come and talked to you about, and they have certain expectations. They say, okay, I want my guys to be able to speak French by the end of this, for example, right? So, and then at the end of doing, when you have a feedback form, whether they like the training, they did a test, okay, you can speak French behavior, as in you see them speaking French now with French clients, you see that there is a return on expectations, right? So, and you have the results, which are the outcome of the training as against the set objectives. For that, the objectives have to be set very clearly at the beginning. Now, till here is where the Kirkpatrick level is, all right? The Phillips adaptation is here, which is the return on investment, which measures the cost as against the effectiveness of the training. When you take people out, you are taking them away from a certain productive place, right? That means there is a cost that is attached to that. If you are engaging an external partner, there is a cost again attached to that. If it is a long-ish kind of program that is staggered or together, it is again a cost on the organization. So as per the effectiveness, and this effectiveness you can see as is on the slide, either through a retention, either through increase in morale or increase in sales, or a CSAT, which is the customer satisfaction, if there's an increase in that. And this is something that takes a little time. This is the part that takes a little time. And if we see that percentage increase, we can justify the cost, of an L&D program. Now, do we need to go through these 5 steps for all programs? No, because all of these steps that you see here take a certain number of and that time may not be available for every program, and it's not necessary for everything. For example, if it's a leadership development program, there is a lot of cost involved here. So you would want to bring an ROI and show it as a performance metric, to the board. But if it's an orientation program, you can do with a reaction and a small pop quiz if you want at the learning stage and stop. You don't need to go up to a return on investment stage because it's too much, right? For something that happens on a regular basis and is in volume. So yeah, that's how you need to go about it. And if you build in your effectiveness measures correctly for each intervention that you're doing as an L&D team, then I think the effectiveness is shown, right? From your small lower level programs all the way to your big ticket programs. So if that happens, you're able to see the effectiveness on the whole for a learning and development team.
Okay. That's great. That's great.